Phase Zero's Road to Deadpool 3 starts here. Beatty here with Aaron Perrine.
Hi, Beatty.
We got Jamie Jurack.
Good morning.
And we got Jenna Anderson.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, everybody? We are doing our X-Men, 2000s X-Men movie, 24 years later. Recap, review, breakdown, discussion as part of the Road to Deadpool 3. A little quick notes to get everybody up to date on some stuff we have coming on Phase Zero. So today starts the Road to Deadpool 3 officially. We are going to talk about X-Men. 2 weeks from now, we're going to do X2. So we're starting this, all the X-Men movies. It's going to be only X-Men movies and Deadpool. So Logan is in that. Deadpool movies are in that. We're not going to do all the Fox movies. We will eventually, at some point, do like Ghost Rider and Blade and these other movies that were not part of Marvel Studios. But for the sake of making sure we can get through all of them with other bonus episodes that we're going to have along the way, we are doing, I think it's 12, 13, something like that. Some a little more than a dozen movies to get ready for Deadpool 3 so that all these characters, all these moments, all these multiverse opportunities are fresh in our minds. Next, our bonus episodes going forward are now on Mondays. By the way, as you can see, here we are. Jail Self Iscardi spoke up, said, hey, Monday might be a better day. So we're trying it out. So we're going to try this out. Jenna, we got a cool episode coming next Monday, and I want you to do the honors in introducing what this one is.
Yeah, so Beatty and I are going to be talking to Zawe Ashton to kind of celebrate the Marvels hitting Disney Plus and hitting home release. We're going to talk to her about all things Darben and MCU, so we're very excited for that.
That's right. Our next Spotlight episode will be dropping. We'll probably drop that one Monday morning. We typically do our bonus episodes at 2 p.m. Eastern time when they're live. But for the sake of people who go to work on Monday and everything, we want to make it available. We might roll it out on YouTube at this time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. But we'll probably drop the podcast audio since it's going to be pre-recorded on Monday morning so that it's available for everybody to make your morning traffic and commute and all that better. Maybe your lunch break, maybe your workout, wherever you listen to us. We love you for it. I feel like there was something else I was supposed to say, but I don't remember what it was. Go watch Tom Hiddleston play Heads Up on the Phase Zero Twitter, comic book Instagram account. That was awesome. I flew down to MegaCon and Tom Hiddleston, I couldn't believe it. He actually did play Heads Up with us, and he was very, very good at it. So that's a thing. But today is all about X-Men. We're probably 6 days away from the Deadpool 3 trailer. So today we're talking about X-Men, and you know what that means. To start these things off, I will never do it again myself. I will never recap these movies in the way Jamie does because the people came for me and they were right in doing so. Jamie, can you give us your iconic refresher?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
All about.
Wow. Okay. I don't know why I didn't expect this, but I should have. Okay. I'm ready. Okay. Are you ready? Mutation. It is the key to our evolution. But every few millennia, evolution leaps forward. 1944, Poland, Nazi occupied. We see a young Eric. He's so sad because those terrible Nazis are ripping away from his mother from him. He reaches, he tries to get her, but he can't. But the gate smashes. He is a mutant. Many years later, around maybe the 2000, it is Mississippi. We've got a young rogue. She's in bed with a boy. They're being flirty. They're about to engage in her first ever kiss. They kiss, but oh no, he's getting the life force sucked out of him. She is a mutant. What is going on? Mutants exist. And now we have our lovely Jean Grey. She is speaking in front of a committee and letting everybody know that this against Senator Kelly, because Senator Kelly is like, mutants need to be registered. This is bad. We don't know what's going on with these people. And she's like, listen, to say mutants are dangerous isn't fair. Anybody can be a danger behind the wheel of a car. And he's like, well, we license people to drive. And she goes, you can't license people to live though, huh? Can you? And so it's like, wow, this seems like it's really going to blow up. And then Professor X is there and he's looking up and he goes, oh, I see somebody. And he goes, Eric, what are you doing here? Eric and Magneto, that's the same person. Magneto and Professor X, they come face to face and they know that things are going to blow up because Magneto, he believes that human beings are not going to accept them. But Professor X, he believes in his heart that humans are good, and this might become a problem later between the two of them. Now we are in a cold area. There's a man. His name is Logan. He goes by the Wolverine. He's in a whole cage match. He gets people to fight, and this big guy comes up, and he's ready to fight, and the guy who runs the cage match is like, don't hit him in the balls. And he's like, I thought anything goes. And he goes, yeah, but he'll take it personal. Bam, boom. Wolverine knocks him out because he's amazing. He's so strong, and also he's got metal in his giant fingers. So then then Magneto's at the bar, and he's like, give me a drink because I'm a winner. And then there's Rogue. She's also at the bar, and she's like, oh, just water for me because I don't have any money. And the guy's like, taking that money away from you so you don't steal it. And then the guy that Wolverine beat in the cage comes to attack them, and she goes, look out. And then he goes, and he pulls out his big metal thingies, and then the bartender gets a shotgun, and he goes, you get out of here, I know what you are. So then Wolverine gets out of there, but Rogue sneaks into the back of his truck, and then he's driving. Oh no, Rogue's back there, and he tries to get rid of her, but she's like, I'm so young and I need help. And so they're in the car driving, and they're chatting, and at one point she's cold. He tries to go to fix the heater, and she jerks away, and he's like, I'm not gonna hurt your kid. And she's like, it's nothing personal. And then she's like, what kind of name is Logan? What kind of name is Rogue? And she's like, it's Marie. And then she's like, those are dog tags. What are those going on there? Does that mean you fought in the army? And he's like, I don't know. And she goes, you should put your seatbelt down. And he's like, okay, I don't need to put my seatbelt on. Oh no, crash! He flies through the window. It's Sabretooth. What's going on? He's all smooshed up. And then all of a sudden, he wakes up. He's in a table. What's going on? There's a beautiful woman. It's Jean Grey. He flashes. He freaks out. He's running around. He finds a giant X on a big wall. He's at the school. That's what's going on. And then he's like, what's going on? Why does Magneto? They're like, Magneto wants you for some reason. You need to stick around for a bit. And he's like, but why? I don't know. And they're like, we don't know either. Hi, I'm Professor X. This is what Cerebro is. That's Jean Grey. And he's like, wow, she's beautiful. I think I'm in love with her. I'm sorry that I slashed at her. But oh no, she's got a boyfriend. His name is Scott. He's really obnoxious. He's also known as Cyclops because he's got boom, boom, beam powers out of his eyeballs. And then at one point, he's like, aren't you going to tell me not to go scam on my girl? And he's like, she wouldn't be my girl if I was going to do that. Love triangle alert. But Rogue's doing well because now she's fitting in the school. Oh, don't forget about Storm. She's also an X-Man. She works there. She's like, I'm a teacher too. And so all that's going on. Meanwhile, Magneto, he's unhatching an evil plot to get the humans to turn into mutants. So he grabs none other than Senator Kelly, because who better to turn into a mutant than their biggest foe? And they do all this thing, but then he's like a watery man, and he's in a cave above, for some reason, above like a cliff, and then he goes and he slips through the bars and he flies through, and then Magneto comes in and Sabretooth's like, whoop, I'll let him slip, and then he's like, he locks Sabretooth in there for a little bit just to teach him a lesson because he lost Senator Kelly. And then cut to a little bit later, somebody's walking up from the water on a beach. It's a waterman. No, it's Senator Kelly. What happens? He needs help. Then the X-Men, they decide to help him, but here's what happens. He is there and he's crying and he's dying and he's like, please, I need someone to stay with me. And it's Storm, and she sits there and she holds his hand and he says, I don't want to be alone. And he goes, do you hate humans? And she says, sometimes. And then he goes, well, you've got one less human to hate now. He's up a water bubble and he dies. And this is how they found out that whatever Magneto's doing, it is not going to work. Then at one point, Logan, he's in bed and he's like having a bad dream, and Rogue's like, what's up with him? I'm gonna go sneak into this room because clearly I have a little crush on this Logan guy. And she goes into the room, she goes into the bed, and then she wakes up and he goes there, goes, wah! And he gets his claws out and he accidentally stabs Rogue, and then she touches his face and she heals herself. Because what else was she going to do? He stabbed her in the chest. But then all the kids run in and they see this happening and they're like, oh no, what's going on? And the next day, Rogue is like worried and she's there. And then Bobby, I forgot to mention Bobby. He is a fellow student. He is an Iceman. He's there and he's like, guess what? Everyone's mad at you. Everyone hates you. Everyone thinks that you're bad because you did that to Logan. And she's like, ah. He goes, you better leave now. Oh no, it's not really Logan. It's someone else. It's Mystique. We haven't met her yet. We have, but I haven't mentioned her yet. She's blue. She can turn into anybody she wants. It's a really cool power. And so Rogue leaves. Oh no, she gets on a train. But then Professor X sends Logan. He's like, we got to go get Rogue. We love her. And then so we're on the train and Logan's like, come on, Rogue, let's give these nerds another chance. They seem to really care about us. And she's like, okay, but Magneto shows up in the train. And then Logan's like, what do you want with me? And he goes, does that metal run through your entire body? Wow. Who? And he goes, who said I ever wanted you? Boom. And then he smooshes Wolverine down the train car because he didn't want him. He wanted Rogue. After all, he kidnaps Rogue. And earlier there at the train station, there's a whole showdown between all the police, and then we've got Magneto, and it's one of the coolest scenes in the history of Marvel when all the police have their guns up and they're ready, and then Professor X gets into Sabretooth's brain, and he's like, and it's a whole showdown, and then one of the gun goes off right into near a cop's brain, and then Magneto's like, I can't stop them all, Charles, but it's okay. It ends up being okay. And then it's a whole, everyone's fighting, things are going down. At one point, Mystique turns into Wolverine, and it's Wolverine versus Wolverine, and you can only tell which one's Magneto because he's like, giving flirty eyes. I'm really Mystique, but I'm dressed up as Wolverine. And so they're all fighting. Meanwhile, Magneto is taking Rogue to the top of the Statue of Liberty because he is going to use her powers to make his giant machine work and turn everyone into mutants, even though we know that's just not going to work. So everyone's fighting down below. Wolverine stabs Mystique, and eventually, though, they all get kidnapped. They're all stuck in the top of the Statue of Liberty. It looks like things aren't going to go their way, but they're the X-Men. They prevail. They take down Magneto. They save Rogue. She almost dies. She gets a white streak in her hair. We know it. It looks familiar. Magneto, he's now in a prison. It is a plastic prison. All it seems to be well there. Rogue is happy in school. Logan, he's got to leave. He's got things to find out about himself. I didn't mention this before, but he does not know who he is. So he's going to go discover himself. And you know what? Seems to me like we're setting up a sequel, babies. And that is X-Men. I hope I didn't.
I really hope they make another one of these. Jamie, how do you have any breath left?
Seriously.
I felt like I could keep going. I love this movie.
That was fantastic. When did you watch it last?
I watched it this week and also in December.
Okay.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah. That is. You're like, oh, I wasn't ready for this. Boom, delivers the recap of the century.
Thank you all for letting me do that. Next time, maybe I'll try to be shorter. It's harder when you know the movie really well because then you want to get all the details in. So thank you.
Claps for Jamie.
Seriously.
Yeah. All right, so that is X-Men 2000. Now, should we share reactions to the movie or should we share like a deeper dive into the movie first? What do we think? I think we should share our opinions first.
Yeah.
Let's go opinions. Aaron, you're at the top of the screen.
It was nice to revisit this. I hadn't seen it in a while. I'm not Jimmy Drack, nor am I Jenna Anderson. I do not rewatch things as often as my co-host. So this is my first time seeing it in probably 8 years, something like that. It's been a long time. A lot of stuff's happened, guys. We lost 4 whole years where I don't remember what happened, and then the other 4 was just moving around. So the casting is tremendous. I also really kind of love that these movies have grown into their own time capsule of that era of filmmaking. This is what all the blockbusters were really shooting for at the time. That doesn't seem quite the same as now. I also think that, funny enough, in a thing that we'll probably talk a lot more about, there is the modern version of this movie would not have quite so much setup with Rogue and Logan doing all the cool stuff to establish their characters. I was like, man, this is nice and languid and it's awesome. But I'm like, there's no way. Whenever we get whatever we're gonna get, we're not getting 25 minutes of Hugh Jackman fight hustling in weird outskirts Canada for this long. And I don't know. The look is really striking. All the effects are slightly better. They held up better than I thought they would, which is really kind of cool too. And, I was just about to say, there's a reason that these are the touchstones for all the stuff that comes afterwards. There really are. Costuming aside, they're the touchstones for everything else. So I was feeling it.
Jenna, what about you?
I completely agree with Aaron. I rewatched things, but I hadn't seen this in at least a couple of years. And honestly, the last time I had watched this was before I really, really started getting into the X-Men comics and the Krakoa era and everything. So even revisiting it in that lens, I found so much more to love about it. I think the way that they show the love triangle is so, so good, especially for the time. They really nail it, and all 3 of those actors really commit to it. And it makes me more excited to kind of revisit that in the later movies, even though I know it gets a little messier. But yeah, I think it is such a nice time capsule, and it is such a nice just kind of microcosm of where Marvel movies were at. And the casting is just so good across the board that even if you don't love every single thing that's going on, especially in the later movies of the franchise, the cast is still just incredible.
Yeah, I'm giving Jamie a chance to catch your breath like Trick Williams at NXT last night. We can't give as much time in between, so I'll go next. I think this movie is awesome. Like I remember watching it for the first time. I was like 9 or 10 years old, and watching it again. I haven't watched it in a long time. I mean, many years since the last time I sat down and watched this whole movie. And watching it just really took me right back. Maybe in this, like it made me wish, like, oh man, I hope Madam Web goes this practical and like just authentic as this movie was. Because like Aaron said about the effects, so much of the effects they found ways to do them practically. Like obviously Toad's tongue and other things had to be added in, but even the moment with Sabretooth in the beginning when Storm shows up and starts blasting snow at him to get him to turn around and try to fight them back. Like, I feel like that snow itself would be computerized now. And just watching it, it just feels like the texture is more there. So I really appreciate that element of this era of movies. So I will concede that on Madam Web, I understand why you guys might be a little excited for those things, because we're probably going to get some of that in that movie since it is based in early 2000s and looks like it could be going that way. But yeah, this movie, the casting's great. It was almost it was like Lone Wolf and Cub type story way before Mando and The Last of Us did it. Like obviously these stories have been around for a long time, but I feel like Wolverine and Rogue's relationship was really the heart of the movie in a big way. And Wolverine really was sort of arguably the main protagonist, I'd say, of this story. And just the supporting cast around him, like Jenna said, was all so perfectly filled out. Good freaking luck to whoever plays Xavier and Magneto after these. I mean, like just that first scene where Eric is covered in shadows before he turns around, and you just have their dynamic at the beginning and their dynamic at the end, and these incredibly well performed, well written, and just designed characters. Good luck to whoever has to take these roles, probably after Secret Wars. They're fantastic. And one last thing, I think the movie starts out brilliantly because this came out at a time when like superhero movies were kind of goofy, but like in the 90s, not all of them, but a lot of them. Like you had Batman and Robin and other silly comic book titles. And this one was like, we're not going colorful. We're not going silly. This is like starting in Poland in World War II. And this is some heavy stuff, like right out of the gate. And it sets the tone for the movie. Doesn't stay that heavy, but it certainly stays that kind of serious in a sense. So I just think it's a great movie. I really, really love this movie. And it really got me hooked into Marvel at an early age. Jamie, what do you think?
I love this movie so much. There are 4 X-Men movies that are heavy in my rewatch rotation with some of the best of the MCU, and this is one of them. I watch it a lot. And it was my introduction to Marvel. It's the first Marvel thing I ever saw. It came out when I was 10, and because I was really into the Burton and Schumacher Batmans and how silly they were. This was a different balance. And Aaron mentioned the costumes, and it's funny because at the time, those costumes I don't think would have worked in the year 2000. And it is fun to see how far we've come and how much people do want those. But this movie, it's certainly got its flaws. I do think Rogue isn't very roguey, but Anna Paquin as Rogue was my first favorite Marvel character. And it is fun because I still love Right Rogue as well. And just we've all said it, but the casting is so good. And it's also, we need to talk about the fact that this movie is an hour and 44 minutes. And to introduce the X-Men in that runtime pretty smoothly is pretty impressive. And it's like a warm hug of a movie to me. All of these people, all of these characters, these actors, they just make me so happy. I love them so much. And I just think this movie is quite infinitely rewatchable.
It does do such a good job introducing not like the X-Men and their world. Like one by one, the introduction of their powers is really unique. Like Wolverine in that first sequence in the snow shows you his claws and then shows you that he can sniff an enemy because Sabretooth jumps out of the woods immediately after he's like, and then turns and gets tackled, and then shows that he can heal. And like, it just did such a good job of establishing those things. And then we're at the school and it is exposition, but it's done in a way that just feels fitting, like not boring exposition taking me out of the story. Or maybe I'm just giving it a pass because this isn't 20 something years old and I have an appreciation for it. But when rewatching it, I didn't feel like, oh, they're just dumping, the explanation of the school on me. It felt like Logan would kind of meet everybody one at a time and then it would just naturally update us on the school, what the school was trying to do, and build out that world. And then it would do the same on the other side of it with the counterpart and Magneto and his group of mutants. Man, just a good movie. It's a very good movie. What do we got here? What can we talk about next? Actually, let's take a 1-minute break real quick, and then we'll get into a deeper dive into some stuff about 2000's X-Men. Great opportunity to subscribe to the channel on YouTube and share our show with your friends. We'll see you in a moment. Welcome back to the X-Men review recap 24 years later. Man, 25 would have just been so nice, but here we are 24 years later. Talking about X-Men from 2000. Let's talk about Magneto and Xavier and their perfectly mirrored arcs in this movie and just the development of Cerebro versus... Did Magneto's machine have a name that he was trying to turn humans into mutants? I don't know if it had a name.
I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
I don't think it did, but I think it's really telling how they had the similar technology, and Charles used it to try to recruit people to help them, and Magneto used it to try to kind of force the mutant gene upon people who looked at mutants as outcasts. And I think that these characters and the commentary that it represents in the real world, and this is 24 years ago, and the X-Men were made how many years before that, and we're here today, and it's still incredibly relevant to things that are going on. Like when you watch that X-Men animated series, you're like, wow, this reminds me a lot of 2020. And it's like, well, it's almost like things aren't really changing that enough, you know? So I just think their dynamic, their mirror image of each other was fantastic in this movie.
I will honestly argue, I feel like part of the reason why these movies are so beloved and why they became so important, even beyond people who were Marvel fans, is like that dynamic between the two of them. I think just like getting to go to the theater every couple of years and watch the two of them act against each other in this kind of adversarial, but still very loving relationship that we obviously get more and more details on as it goes on. But just like, I think that their dynamic is really the anchor of the entire thing. So I completely agree.
And also this I hit home for Ian McKellen, who, you know, it's like he's a gay man and dealing with, you know, having the people trying to oppress the LGBTQ community. And he gets to kind of play a character who speaks up in a way that I don't know Ian McKellen would agree with necessarily because he's playing Magneto, the villain. But, you know, it's like the commentary is there. And obviously, like these are characters created as a commentary on civil rights many years before this movie came out. So...
I love their dynamic so much, and I really can't wait till we get to First Class, because that's one of my favorite in terms of those two characters. But also, I think part of the reason why Patrick and Ian work so well is because they're BFFs in real life. Yeah. Like if you just Google photos of them, it will sustain your heart for hours. Like Patrick is always kissing Ian on red carpets. It's so cute. They've done a lot of theater together. They're theater boys, they're like, as a theater kid, I know that dynamic so well. And watching them, especially as older men, have that, it's really special, and it carries through. There is something to be said for real life friendship chemistry being used on screen. It works.
Can I just say one thing about Magneto before we move? Rewatching this made me think, or at least maybe like kind of like reinforce my opinion that I wouldn't do too much rejiggering with his origin when we get to wherever we're going with the MCU is very, very powerful. The choice to open it on that, the kind of like, pathos he brings to the whole role and stuff. It is inextricable from those circumstances. So while I've seen people be like, it would be fine for this to be different, this to be different, I wouldn't go change it anything. I think that it's sometimes watching these older projects kind of reaffirm, like, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Let's run her back. That's fine. Run her back. It works.
The Holocaust stuff and
yeah.
It's gonna be, I agree with you, but for the sake of argument, we're 24 years later now. How old would Magneto be at this point? Does that matter?
Well, if he's a black Jewish person, black don't crack, so it'd be fine.
You can use 100 different plot points to justify why he is looking as old as he is when we get to the present day. Like the X-Men comics and just popular culture have enough things built into where you could easily justify that.
Yeah,
I think it would be kind of messed up if they removed that backstory.
Yeah.
That is,
it would be weird
I think that would be really bizarre. And like Jenna said, I think there are a million ways that they could make it make sense. But it is, but you do make a point, BD, like where it is interesting. Where when we were kids, that was like it was. My great grandfather was alive and he escaped Nazi Germany, and that was something that like was tangible to me because I was close to my great grandfather. But like he is obviously, since he passed away at 102 years old, and like now that generation is gone because it's a long time ago, and it is something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, if let's say he was 10 in that first scene in 2000, he's 75, which is believable. Now he'd be 95, which is 99 and trying to, do supervillain things.
The way I would do it, taking a page out of the animated series, just like stick him in the Savage Land for a little bit and he just ages a little differently there. And then by the time he comes back to the present day, he's a little bit younger than he should be.
More Savage Land.
And we kind of got a Savage Land acknowledgement in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, right? Like kind
of like a split second. Yeah.
Maybe it was a Savage Land with the little dinos and stuff. Man, I can't wait to see Savage Land fully. Give me some pterodactyl snatching people out of the.
I am fully convinced it's happening in Deadpool 3. I'm so convinced based on that one picture Ryan Reynolds shared where their names were in the Jurassic Park font.
Yeah.
I like, come on.
Oh yeah, that would make a lot of sense too. I didn't even think about that.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing I thought of because like I was like, why are they using the Jurassic Park font?
I also feel like Ryan Reynolds would not pass up the opportunity to have like either Deadpool or Wolverine riding a dinosaur. Like I feel like that is the kind of visual that they can do with a Disney budget that they would really, really want to do.
Here's the thing: Deadpool 3 feels like it's very much Deadpool kills the Foxverse, basically. But we look back on the Foxverse almost in a meme-ish kind of way, like we're ready to bury it because it ended on such a fizzly, mostly crappy note in a lot of ways, but it also ended on some good movies. Like there were some. Logan was towards the end of its run. Deadpool 2. I like Deadpool 2 more than most people. I think is the kind of temperature I've picked up. But you look back at these and it's like I don't really need to see Deadpool running around killing James Marsden and Halle Berry. Like I like these characters in these castings quite a bit. So, but if it's Ty Sheridan. Whatever. Okay, he can.
Wow, I don't want to see them die again. We've seen these characters die already too many times. Like I don't want that again because that is crushing. I've watched these people die, or in Logan where it's like they already died, they're all dead. Like I don't like let them. That's why we'll talk about it eventually. But that's why the ending of Days of Future Past was so good. Let it stop there. Just let that. That's great.
There was the Easter egg back then. Somebody touched on the costumes not being part of, the time period, the 2000s. Nobody thought you could make a movie with those colorful costumes. But Cyclops made a joke about it to Wolverine. He said, "Well, would you prefer yellow spandex?" And every Marvel fan in theaters back then was, or who watched the X-Men animated series, was like, oh. Did the Leo meme back before the Leo meme existed, clearly referencing the design from the comics, which we are now going to get in Deadpool 3. Rogue's boyfriend, this is something I picked up from a heavy spoilers video. Shout out to MT for the good work he did there. Rogue's boyfriend in the scene was named David in the comics, or was named Cody. No. Comics was Cody. Scene in the movie was David, named after David Hayter, who wrote this movie. And David Hayter later released the Hayter cut. David Hayter later appeared in the movie as the cop who found Mystique, who when she made herself into the cop with the 3 stab wounds, faking dead alive thing after she got in a fight with Wolverine. So that's kind of a cool little Easter egg, I thought. Is there anything? What else? Stan Lee was the hot dog vendor on the beach when the senator walked up as the mutant fish man, waterman thing. So that was cool. Stan Lee cameo. What was Stan Lee's first cameo ever?
I'm pretty sure that was the first like proper Marvel live action one.
Unless we're talking Mallrats.
Yes.
Which I don't think counts.
Yeah.
Did this come out right before Spider-Man?
Yes.
So then he just went back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, Stan. What else we got? Oh, I'm just looking at my notes. Magneto is a villain with understandable intentions, which makes him so outstanding. Like, it's like Thanos, in my opinion. You might not agree with their methods, but they're fleshed out enough that you're like, oh, I see his point, even though maybe don't go about it that way. But I see your point. That said, I would love to be a mutant, so hit me with it. Like, come on. When I was a kid, I'd sit there and I'd just every once in a while just be like, did I get telekinetic powers yet? And still no, but I would just check every once in a while.
So the chat is pointing out.
I just want to know what our dream.
I feel like we need to ask that at like the very end of this, unless because I'm like I don't even know what mine would be off the top of my head.
Gotta think about
it. But I will say the chat is pointing out he was in the Bill Bixby Hulk show as like a jury member, but like that was so before the idea of like having a cameo became a thing. So like this is the first movie one. So
early in the movie, Rogue has the Twin Towers and a Statue of Liberty on a postcard, foreshadowing later in the film when she would be on the Statue of Liberty near the Twin Towers in New York City, where the film would culminate with the OG superhero Statue of Liberty fight. Move over, Spider-Man No Way Home. I thought that shot, like there's that shot of Wolverine with his claws going around the kind of one of the little spires on the crown. Mm-hmm. Back then, the filmmakers were just like, we killed this. And like it just looks, it holds up. It's like obviously fake now, but like it still looks good. And back then that was like pushing things forward. That was brand new. That was incredible to see. And I really appreciated that. What else?
One moment from the Statue of Liberty that I really appreciated more this watch because I've been rewatching X-Men in the animated series. Because something about X-Men in the animated series is like Scott is like so annoying all the time. He's like such a dummy. He's being so dumb. And so a part that I really appreciated on this watch was when they're in the Statue of Liberty and Scott is like, storm, blast him. And Magneto's like, you want to set off electricity in this giant copper? Don't you live in a school? I'm like, yeah, Scott is a dummy, isn't he?
That's why I love him. I will say, because with Aaron talking about like how are they going to pale in comparison when we reboot this in the MCU, I would love if they also make Jean and Scott teachers at very least in the reboot. I don't really want to just start completely with the original 5 as teenagers and we just build out from there. I feel like there is already so much X-Men lore we have never seen on screen that it would kind of suck to be that far along from any of it happening. So just make them teachers. Let them be like, I don't know, undergrad or postgrad, and they're just teaching at the school, and then that way we can have the multi-generational aspect of it.
Yes.
I think there's been so many big moments in X-Men comics in the past like 5 years that they can, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Yeah. So I think that is very much probably going to inform the stories we see in the Marvel Studios versions of these characters once we get past the Deadpool bringing these guys back. But I'm with you. You don't have to change these things to be different. Like Spider-Man has changed so much, which I'm fine with. I love the Spider-Man trilogy in the MCU. Everybody knows I'm a fan of both Homecoming and Far From Home, and obviously also a fan of No Way Home. So I'm not like a comics purist who needs to see, Uncle Ben. I'm fine with Tony Stark essentially being Uncle Ben. I know, hate me for it, but I am. So, but I don't think you need to take that same approach. Like, yes, this early X-Men movie is that good, but you can kind of do some similar stuff because what's so good about it is very true to these characters in a lot of ways. And if you change them, I don't need to be changed too dramatically. It's far enough away too. It's far enough back. We can, like Aaron said, run it back.
We just need Gambit. Give us Gambit.
Exactly.
Oh boy,
I'm scared. I almost impression o'clock, but it's not happening.
Nope.
Oh, goodness. I will say too, just as like a thing, I always make jokes about these because it's so funny that we can never make 3 of these in the sequence without the Phoenix rearing her head. That there's so much other stuff Like, I would really love, but I also know this is a massive breadwinner for the studio and for the company in general, and they're going to use that regular setup. The 90s cartoon is the most memorable piece of ephemera from this whole like franchise for a reason. So I'm not getting my hopes up for like Children of the Atom or like Ecstatics or anything cool, anything awesome. You know, it's not going to happen. BD, I would ask a question. Isn't Ki-Hai Kwan like one of the like
Stunt coordinator?
Yes,
stunt coordinators
yeah.
on this thing?
Yeah.
He was in his bag. I liked a lot of the fights. I was like, oh, look at him. Like, this was really
I'm
cool.
traveling son of a gun. MCU for 2 decades now. He also coordinated a fight with 2 Wolverines long before Logan did it.
Yeah.
Because there was the scene where Mystique becomes Wolverine, they fight each other, and then Wolverine takes her claws off because they're not made of, we're probably just made of, I don't know what you'd call that, what Mystique transforms into. Probably not bone, probably not, definitely not adamantium, but some extension of Mystique's body. And that causes her to like let out her voice in a scream instead of like the copy of Logan's voice. And I appreciated that Wolverine was able to sniff her out as Storm too. Like I really thought this movie did such a good job of using the powers and showing the powers being like, you know, so yeah.
I feel like I want to say, because I left out of the recap, my favorite best line and my favorite worst line, and I think that they're both worth talking about. My favorite best line is when Rogue asks if it hurts when the claws come out, and Wolverine says every time. That is the most effective line in all of comic book movies, because every single time he lets those claws out in anything I watch, my heart hurts for him because I think about how it hurts. That is like, it's truly so effective because I'm like, oh no, it hurts. That makes me sad. But we all know what the best worst line is. And that's what happens to a toad when it gets struck by lightning. The same thing that happens to everything else. I feel like we got to talk about that.
I will say, with the "does it hurt every time," I was hoping we would bring that up in some capacity because I do love that line. I think it is an incredible line, but every single time I see it online in a modern context, it's with the gif from the animated series of him slicing bread with his claws, and so it just completely it's like, yeah, it hurts even when he's using it in like the goofiest, silliest context possible, which like makes it so much better for me.
Patrick King is disappointed, Jamie, in the comments.
I didn't say it was the worst I said it was the best. I still called it the worst best. I still love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the whole wide world, but it's silly. We all know it's silly.
Toad spit his goop on Jean's face, which fortunately for Jean, it doesn't have the same powers as the comics, where that would have just cooked her skin right off. She would have been looking a little different if that was the same as the comics. Instead, it was just like Nickelodeon slime time. We got to clean this off so you can see again. What else we got here? I'm pretty. Oh, I want to talk about that standoff scene. This is my last talking point. If you guys have anything, please throw it out there. But I thought that was one of the best scenes in the movie. The tension was great. Charles pulling the cops' guns out, pointing them at themselves, and all of the cops choosing not to move out of the way. With no, I think a couple of them probably could have just got out of there and nothing would have happened, because Charles had a lot of things to pay, or Eric had a lot of things to pay attention to. But then when Charles takes over Sabretooth's mind, basically to communicate with Magneto, I thought that was brilliant. And like, it was another great way of displaying the power of Magneto's helmet, the power Charles has, all these things. And I thought that was such a great tense moment, and I will never understand why some of those cops didn't just move out of the way while they were just stood there like as if a person was right there. But whatever, dramatic tension, I'll allow it. But I thought that scene was great.
I feel like maybe he was keeping them there though, because there was enough metal going on where I don't think they could move. Because if they could move, their hands would come off the trigger. I think that they were stuck.
Well, no, he took the guns and turned them, and they were floating in front of their faces.
Right. But they have metal on their bodies. I bet that they were somehow frozen in place.
Man,
that makes sense.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, ultimately, whatever. But
Aaron, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna make a joke about Bobby, because my poor boy. He like, why everybody's joking about us laying out stuff like about like, oh, how you meet all of them. Poor Bobby is so one note. Every time he came on screen after like, actually as the first time, I was like, hey, what's up? I'm Bobby. And I was like, I make ice. Every time he came on screen for the rest of the time, I was like, hey, I make ice. That's his whole thing. The later movies do a way better job with Iceman than we do here. I know there's not time. and he just gets to be like dreamy and like kind of a weird like Jonathan Taylor Thomas post slightly kind of way. But like, yeah, I was like, poor boy. He's just here to be to get weird changelinged afterwards. It was weird. It was silly.
I was going to say, I feel like that's reflective of like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like you said, like Jonathan Taylor Thomas sort of teenage boy. Like they absolutely would be like, I'm Bobby, I make ice. Hi. Nice. Like that, just every conversation would start that way. So I feel like that was kind of accurate in a way.
Come watch me in Horse Sense.
All right, the end of the movie, that final scene, Charles and Eric in the glass prison, just genius. Austin Powers went on to make fun of this. It was wonderful. I think this is like when we started realizing, like, man, there might be a whole universe here. There might be a whole franchise coming. And Charles never wavered, wanted to find hope. And Magneto was like, he didn't say it, but he was like, I'm gonna flex and bust out of here at some point, you know, right? And then we were like, man, they might do another one. And this was 8 years before post-credit scenes. This was, before any universes existed. Spin-offs weren't, I mean, like, sure, they were a thing, but not like in comic book movies, like, how we have them now. I love that final scene, and then kind of touching base with everybody and they're in their places and all that. But I think that tension between them with the chess was just genius. What a nice touch, having them playing chess with each other with little glass pieces. Whew, well done. So what a movie. What a film.
What a picture.
That's all I got to say about it. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about X-Men?
I do have one joke that I tweeted about when I was rewatching this. When Storm is teaching all of the kids at the school, like on the blackboard behind her, just says the Roman Empire. And I was like, she would kill it on TikTok in 2023. Like, I love that ended up being the subject.
Yeah, no, that's
good.
Ahead of its time. Thinking about it every day, even back then.
Yep.
Ariel was very perturbed. They just left all the kids there at the school to like go handle this thing, and no one stayed back there. And I was like, well, Charles is like corpses hanging out. Like maybe he'll be fine. Maybe they'll be all right.
As we'll learn in the next movie, Colossus is hanging around watching the kids. He's there. We just haven't seen him.
Yeah. I was cracking up though. I was like, oh, come on. Your parents never stepped out and was like, okay, just don't touch the stove. Like, that's what they did.
Do you remember when the basketball court opened up when you watched that for the first time, when the bat and the jet came out?
My God.
This was my Hogwarts Empire. Like, this was, I remember everybody, Hogwarts is one of the most immersive, movie worlds you can go to. I think they did such a good job fleshing that out in the Harry Potter films. But going to the mansion, I think that this did such a good job of establishing the school for gifted youngsters, the environment, the secrets it holds, just the exciting things, and seeing the basketball court move and the little ball rolls off and falls in. Just such great world building for that location. And that's the kind of thing, like we right now, the MCU in the past few years, I feel like hasn't had that kind of thing, with the exception of being like She-Hulk's office, which was clearly a very well built out environment, and you could we even knew where the best, cleanest bathrooms were, stuff like that. Like, I mean, I think that then that's like a reason why I love Avengers Tower, for example, because we got to spend time in it and became a place we became familiar with. Like, what they did with this mansion in this movie was so creative and thorough, and I really enjoyed that.
I just realized we didn't talk about doors. We didn't talk about the basement. We didn't talk about how it looks like the weird medical bay from the Marvels. Like, we didn't even do any of that.
Yeah, there's connections. Maybe it is. Joe Deckelmeyer from Screen Rant asked Lashana Lynch if actually I don't know if they published that interview yet.
They did.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he asked her if that's the same universe as the Fox universe, and she said she's not sure. Like this movie we just watched. So
I believe that. I believe that they don't tell them. But it is, though. I'm sorry. You're not going to get Kelsey Grammer in there and it not be the same. That's ridiculous.
So
not
it'll
just
be
that.
interesting to see. Go ahead.
She's a liar too. God bless her. She's great. She's awesome. Everything. Because she said that they told her she was coming back from the Marvels after she did Multiverse of Madness in the interview with Joe. And I'm like, okay, so they have her on a one appearance payment plan where if you're here and you're being the next one, we will tell you what the next one is. We're not going to tell you anything after that, though, because she said she did Captain Marvel, and they're like, we want you back for WandaVision. And then while she was doing WandaVision, they're like, get on this Zoom. And then it was her and Krasinski and somebody, I think, who was it? Oh, Haley Atwell in a Zoom, like looking at each other like, what are we all here for? This is weird. And then after that, it was like the Marvel. So I would not surprise if she did know, but we can't tell. My dream is that she and Kelsey are in Deadpool 3.
I like to imagine that the actors go in there and ask questions like that, like, hey, is this part of the X-Men universe from the previous movies? but I feel like so few of them even have the thought. It's just they go to work, they do the job, and they go home. And I don't know they're picking it apart the same way we are. Some of them are. Like, I believe Tom Hiddleston is in there asking every question, I think, and I think there's a few others that really, really are so into the universe and the character and the franchise.
Amon
Vellani. Yeah. But I think some of them kind of show up, do their job, and they're like, well, I guess I'll just see whatever happens if I ever even watch the movie. And I think most of them do, but
I want someone in the comments is saying that it's obviously a different beast because it looks different. And you guys, that was 2006. Things are different. And I think that they obviously made him CGI this time to keep him a surprise.
Yeah.
If you got Kelsey Grammer walking around in blue face, then your people are gonna know. So I don't think that is an indicator that he's a different version of Beast.
Yeah. Well, we'll see sooner or later. Who knows? Post-credit scenes
I hope so.
in the MCU. Sometimes they pay off these days. Sometimes you're left hanging for half a decade. Where are you, Shang-Chi? All right, well, that's our X-Men recap review bonus episode. Anybody else got anything else they want to talk about on the X-Men front before we close this one out? I think we're good to go. All right. Next week, Monday, we will have Zoe Ashton talking about Dar-Ben and the Marvels on our Spotlight episode. A week after that, 2 weeks from today, we will have our X2 bonus episode, which I'm going to try to get a little bit more structure. We can really break down, reactions, Easter eggs, all that stuff. We're going to learn with this as we go and try to keep them informative. If there's things you want us to do with these, please let us know by tweeting at us, commenting on Instagram, commenting on YouTube, all that stuff. We really appreciate the feedback. We will still have our every Wednesday live at noon Eastern time for MCU news. Let's just say Sunday night, we might just have to do a bonus episode, like an immediate reaction, live reaction. We just watched this epic new trailer type thing with whoever's available during that little football game that's going on. If you're not, I know Jenna is going to be glued to the screen because there's going to be somebody in a box seat, but
I also have to work. I also am asked to write articles that night, so I will be glued to the screen for a lot of reasons. Also, the Ben Affleck Duncan commercial, so...
Can you imagine NFL fans if not only Taylor Swift is at the game, but also in a Deadpool 3 trailer? They're going to cry.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that's our schedule for the next couple weeks. We got some cool stuff. So if the trailer drops Sunday, we will figure out whoever's available Sunday night. We will hop on here and do, our immediate reaction thing as we do. So you have our word. I'm going to be home watching the Super Bowl with my mom. So I will be hopping on here immediately to talk about Deadpool 3 with y'all. Jenna, any last words for today's bonus episode?
It's at Hey It's Jenna Lynn on social media. As always, go read some comics. I mentioned them earlier in the show, but go read the Krakoa era of X-Men comics, especially Hoxpox, House of X Powers of 10. It's incredible. So at least go start with there if this episode made you want to read X-Men comics.
Yes. Jamie.
I want you to know I just bought the first Krakoa era.
Yay!
I'm ready. I bought it recently, and I'm so excited to start it. So read along with me, everybody, and learn things for the first time. And I want to say one more time, because Aaron said it, X-Men 2000 is the touchstone. We wouldn't be where we are. No one would have made Iron Man if it wasn't for the success of this movie. This movie brought us, Phase Zero wouldn't exist if X-Men didn't exist. And I think that is something really special. Follow me at Jamie Jarek on Letterboxd, Instagram, and TikTok, and Jamie Cinematics on Twitter.
Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron.
I didn't know he was gonna make it. It's at some like Horner on Twitter. As Jamie and Jenna said, you should go read some X-Men comics. If I said the word ecstatic, so you have no idea what that is, you need to go Google that and go find those stories. If you like things like the Suicide Squad or Thunderbolts and those sort of concepts, not giving too much away. It's a hoot. It's a very early 2000s style thing. So go find those. That'd be great. And also go read all of our wonderful, wonderful content on comicbook.com, because Adam Barnhart is breaking down every single image from the Daredevil that keep going on the internet. So if you just want to watch along before with Adam and then come back again when it actually airs, you can do that. And I think that's good.
Just as you were saying goodbye, I got a delivery. And it's
oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So stay tuned to social media, because this Storm unboxing is about to be massive. It's so big it doesn't even fit in the frame. Wow. All right, I'm out of breath from carrying the dang thing. Nova Marking is excited because it got delivered. All right. Well, that's our X-Men show. See you in 2 weeks for X2. See you in a week with Zoe Ashton. I won't be here Wednesday because I'll be seeing a web about a madam. And leave a 5-star review. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Play our show for your mom. Play it for your dog. And all that good stuff. See you soon. Bye. Oh, I'm out of breath.